All right. Hello, everybody. It's Sebastian from Enzyme at Work with the podcast What's Cooking. So we have another week, another great guest, Chandler, which is going to introduce himself very shortly. Just to recap what we do at Enzyme at Work, especially in this podcast, we try to kind of find the right people on this planet that can explain us some key fundamental topics that are cooking these days. For example, what is social business impact? We're going to talk about it with Chandler today. What is carbon credits? What is decarbonization? What is all of this deep tech? All of this kind of thing. So I think it's very important. It's very closely related to what I like, which is about collaboration, science, accelerating innovation, all of the entrepreneurship, circular economy, sustainability, and as it is closely related, I want to be sure I understand that, and the vast majority of people understand it. And the best way I found is basically interviewing people like that Chandler. So, without further ado, Chandler, I give you the floor. Please introduce yourself.
Yeah, no problem. First off, thank you so much for having me today, Sebastian. Super excited to talk about, I guess, my area of work and, yeah, hopefully bring some information on the topic to others who are interested or, yeah, looking to make impact in their own ways. So, um, yeah, first off, I first became involved in social entrepreneurship or impact entrepreneurship. I think it's something good to note that there's kind of a few different defining words here for these things, but typically it evolves around entrepreneurship for impact making in social or environmental type of impact. So I came into contact with this in my university studies about 5 years ago. I had a course on like a social entrepreneurship type of course, and just kind of exposed me for the first time that business can be used for good. And so that's why I first came in contact. But then I decided to keep pursuing this, and eventually I started working for a company called We Make Change. And yeah, we're a platform that enables social entrepreneurs or impact entrepreneurs a place to find the right kinds of human capital they need to help them through their business challenges. So I started working in this area, and I really started to learn more about social entrepreneurship and what it really means, and also from a global perspective, because I think that's something that that's also important to yeah to demarcate. So but yeah, in my work, I've worked with different social entrepreneurs working in the global south or across Europe, with many different kinds of innovative ideas and solutions to make change, to make impact. Yeah, and then I decided, I guess, just kind of fast forward through that time, I decided to also go back and do my master's degree in sustainability development, policy, and how it's impacted on society. And I then did my focus on social enterprises in the global south, particularly looking at Kenyan and Ghanaian-based social enterprises, and really looking at the ecosystem around them and what that means exactly. Who are the stakeholders that are involved in this ecosystem? And it's really more about looking at the ecosystem of support. And so I was looking particularly, though, at what are their main challenges in accessing funding. So that's been kind of my journey up until now. I've worked on a couple of side projects as well. Currently, I've actually been working on another social entrepreneurship as a inclusion enabler for youth, and how social entrepreneurship can be a key for them to unlock their potential and such. So also apologies if you hear my dog in the background playing with his squeaky toy here. But yeah, that's kind of I think that's a pretty good gist of my background. But yeah.
Cool. All right. Thank you very much, Chandler. So, I recall the copy of today. So, successful social impact business model through ecosystem. So, what I like to start with is, okay, what is it? What are
Yeah.
we talking about?
Yeah. Yeah, sure. So, basically touching back on this. So essentially a social impact business is a business. Well, I have to say, for one, there's a lot of varying definitions. There's a lot of different organizations, academics, institutes, policymakers, all of that who have kind of their definitions about it. But, I like to break it down into the basics of, any kind of entrepreneurial pursuit which has a mission of making impact in a social or environmental way, or perhaps it's in an economic empowerment type of way, which I guess usually tends to go back to the social factor. So it's typically this in its broad sense, but there's more definition around it too. It can be the case that a social enterprise or an impact business, it needs to also be generating revenue, which it can put back into its mission. So there's also differing ideas around how much of that revenue should be going back into the business and how much should be going back into particularly the mission of the business. And then we have, then we have all of the different kinds of business models. So there's a variety of ways and approaches you can take to being an impact entrepreneur. To give you some examples, we have entrepreneurs who fall into this. Maybe they're a community member and they see an issue that they see a challenge, and they think, I want to solve this. I want to figure something out for this. And they go about doing this usually in maybe a community-driven oriented way, which ends up turning into maybe some sort of service or maybe a product which they develop or they co-develop. This maybe turns into some sort of organization, but then eventually they run into needing to make some revenue so they can keep funding what they're doing. And that's kind of where the entrepreneurial side of things, I think, meets the mission for making an impact that a lot of entrepreneurs just kind of find themselves falling into. And so they turn to a model of business to be able to keep funding this kind of mission they may have. Another idea may be in developing a product which has an intention to, solve a sustainability challenge. So we can think about maybe solving some climate change issues that we have. Maybe we're looking at a carbon capture technology or something like this. This can come out of an entrepreneur who just wants to make a difference in the world and make impact. So therefore, they go about creating a certain type of product, which they can then turn into a business. But the goal is to make impact, and they want to keep fueling their impact by using a sustainable business model. So you have a few different ways. Another really popular way, I think, which is happening, you're seeing a lot nowadays, is you have the traditional impact sector, so the traditional development sector, maybe the global sector even, where you have a lot of NGOs who, this is kind of what NGOs have been doing for a long time, right? They've been trying to make impact, and the way they operate is typically is on donations and by fundraising. So they need to, that's how they fuel themselves. But if we look across the globe right now, that kind of money, that funding, it's drying up in a lot of places, and people are getting less inclined to investors and governments are getting less inclined to keep dumping money into some of these missions. So NGOs have also taken on a new challenge for themselves in this regard, where they're starting to spin out startups or social enterprises alongside their NGOs as a means to fuel their mission, to keep them going. So you do see a lot of NGOs that are taking their traditional area of impact and they're turning it into some sort of business. They're looking for business models that they can leverage, and this is kind of this is another way you see this happening. So it's a very typical way nowadays.
Thank you very much, Chandler. About your last point, I mean, one of the most famous ones these days is OpenAI. OpenAI, on a first basis, was a non-profit organization.
Yeah,
and they turned it out into a business.
Yeah.
Some of the points you said resonate a lot. I mean, for the audience today, I mean, Hello Tomorrow in Paris, a global summit. It's about deep tech, sustainability, circular economy, and impact.
Yeah.
And actually, there were some pitches this afternoon. There was this startup that is about carbon capture. And you have, the jury, the jury is these investors, and they're like, okay, what is your KPI? And their KPI is how much CO2 they capture.
Yeah.
That's their KPI, which is very much interesting. You would never. I mean, I pitched a startup. I had my own startup. I saw my own startup. My pitch was, okay, how much let's say top line revenue, how much, what is going to be your EBIT, We were never about this kind of KPIs. Back
Yeah.
to your point, that's what this is their KPI that they want to achieve, and then the back, let's say the back of the business is driven by this goal. Back to your point,
Yeah.
and I think this is very relevant today. Is that, and this is kind of new, is you can make an impact and make business.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's one of the biggest misconceptions I think about this these kinds of models is that, oh, these aren't profitable, or you have to be a nonprofit if you want to make impact. You have to be an NGO. This is not the case. I think that's one of the biggest misconceptions when I'm talking to people about social entrepreneurship, impact entrepreneurship, is that they think, oh, but there's no money in that. Me as I want to be an entrepreneur. I want to be successful. I want to, Well, yeah, you can do that, though, that you very much can do that. And I think this is where we're starting to see policy, and we're starting to see more regulation and frameworks that are changing to be adaptable to this, to be adaptable to entrepreneurs who want to make impact in the world. And that's a good thing. That's what we want to keep seeing. So,
yeah. Talking about, so definition is clear. Can you maybe give us some observation or some things you've seen done that maybe was not messed, or maybe something you say, okay, guys, if you go into this, take care about this, be mindful about that, and keep this in mind. Some kind of, not tips in practice, some kind of practical feedback, observation you could give to a guy that has a lot of here today that is going into this route of social business impact. Anything you can advise them?
yeah, I mean, whether you're an entrepreneur who's been a serial entrepreneur, maybe you're someone who's been in entrepreneurship their whole lives, maybe you're new to it. I think the key thing is to identify where you want to make impact. What is the mission that you want to have, and really stick with that mission, right? Traditional businesses, their mission might be, we're going to make the best TV, and we're going to sell as many TVs and make this top line revenue. That might be their mission. Well, take that same kind of drive and that ambition and put it into a mission that's impactful, that you want to make change in. I think that's the first thing. The second thing is to also understand, who are your beneficiaries in this regard. Are you looking to make impact with a community? Are you looking to make a global impact with helping to capture carbon, for instance? Are you looking to bring economic development to your own community or to a region? Are you looking to solve a problem that affects people rather than environment? What is it that you're looking to do? And then to also think about, you may have that, you may see the problem, but then what is the solution? Is that a product? Is that a service? If it's a product or a service, who are the potential clientele for that? How can you maybe link the two together in that way? And so when I'm talking with entrepreneurs, aspiring, or those who are currently doing this, oftentimes, it comes down to traditional types of business, business knowledge and just kind of business advice, like, think about who your stakeholders are. Think about who your clients are going to be. Think about what kind of value chain you're looking to have. Are you going to have a product? Well, is that product going to be sustainably made all the way throughout the value chain? Is it going to be, you have to start thinking about these different things. And, you can have a model for a business, but I would say that for an impact business, but I would say that if you're going to go the route of making impact, do it wholeheartedly and really look at all the different areas so that you can maintain sustainability throughout everything you're doing. And that's whether it's a product or a service, and make sure you keep your heart at it. And don't lose hope, because, in entrepreneurship, this is the thing, I mean, many entrepreneurs fail before they succeed. So, it's the same in the social impact business, world. So, yeah.
They're still resilient. What is also, what you are saying, what I've also heard a lot to them, is a lot of pitch from like big VCs, Nexstar VCs, very big VCs all over the place, and they were like, okay, you have a tech, deep tech, that's nice, but customer first.
Yeah.
Who is going to be your customer?
Yeah.
Because, and I think this is very relevant. It's back to the point. We are not a non-profit business. So we want to make an impact, okay, but we need to sell.
Yeah.
So that's your whole point, and I fully agree with you on this thing. What I like about what you said, it's back in the day. I mean, still some companies are doing like this. You have a big bold vision, big bold. Okay, we are going to make the world a better place. But this was kind of the thing to. I'm not going to say greenwashing because it's a bit too much, but I have a feeling when I'm listening to you is that this vision is for real.
Yeah.
This is what you should think about it every day, and it should be. And this is going to be a follow-up question, because this is a bold vision, right? You want to make an impact. It's bold. How do you stick to this? Because I mean, it's not about the big old business revenue, EBIT. Everybody is happy. This is an even more, I would say, from my point of view, an even more challenging way to do business.
Yeah. It's very challenging. When you're looking at going down this path, you're confronted with much more constraints than the typical business. As I said, if you're looking to be sustainable in what you're doing, you have to adhere to that moral, that ethic that you put out there. And if you want to do that, then it's usually going to cost you more. It's going to you're not going to have access to the same amount of resources, or you're going to be trying to access the same resources that typical traditional businesses are accessing. From a funding perspective, this is something I think which is really important to note too, is that social enterprises, impact businesses, they don't have typically a legal identity. You don't have like the LLC of sustainable impact businesses. You don't have this kind of thing. And when you're looking for funding through government or through private funding, these kinds of models, they're not always recognized everywhere, and that's something that we don't see, that we see an issue in across the globe, really. In Europe, it's better. There's more frameworks out there that are kind of talking about, okay, maybe a social business type ventures that they can kind of formalize into law. But then you look to like the global South, and they're missing a lot of framework laws on this, and so it actually hinders a lot of social enterprises and impact businesses in seeking out funding, because they have to compete with those KPIs of profit from investors, and from public funds. A lot of public funds, they also require that we want to see there's revenue, we want to see that you guys are generating actual income. But most of these social enterprises, and they struggle in the beginning, and it is tough. It's tough to get off the ground, and that's something that I think in my own research, looking into social enterprises in the global South and looking at really the ecosystem, tucking back to the ecosystem, it's finding ways to bridge the ecosystem actors, such as impact investors, such as intermediary groups that are helping to legitimize maybe the reporting structures for social enterprises, so that they're more valuable to VCs. They're more valuable to outside investors. This is something that we see a gap in, especially in the global South, more so than we do see in Europe, I would say. And this is part of the ecosystem that needs to be worked on, I guess you could say. So
cool. So we are let's say more or less 1 minute to go from the end of the podcast.
So quick.
You cannot infer it, but policy. So you said there's some the good old legacy legal way is not let's say fitting anymore. In a nutshell, do you think we are going to have new legal form for social business impact?
Yeah, I mean, we are starting to see it. So, across Europe, there are some countries that have these kinds of legal forms. I will say the UK has a CIC. Austria just recently, CIC. It's I forget the acronym right now, but it's a civic social organization that can be, that can make profit but also make impact. Austria just recently, I was speaking with a social enterprise alliance or social enterprise network in Austria. And they just made huge breakthrough in getting a legal identity for social enterprises on the books now. So, these are strides that we're seeing. So I think that, I can be optimistic, I think, looking ahead for the years to come, that we'll see more of this kind of, framework legislation happening and helping and moving social entrepreneurship and impact businesses forward.
Wow, I mean that's new. I never heard about this thing, and nobody talked about this today. Actually, thank you very much. And I mean, very very practical view of the space of the landscape, practical, let's say, observation and guidances. Chandler, I mean, thank you very much. I think we actually personally, I'm very happy with the discussion today. I learned a lot. I would like to thank also the people that are going to listen to this podcast, listen to Chandler. If you are interested, I would say, if you want to know more, I mean, you have Chandler is on LinkedIn. You reach out to him; he can help you out. Chandler, I would like to thank you for your time. And,
Yes.
Not just an important notice that I like Chandler very much. It's also why he's part of the scientific committee of Unlockino, my other startup. So, but thank you for your time, Chandler. And I think we need to talk together because I think we need to have a dedicated podcast on the policy.
Yeah.
I want to dig into this thing.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you for having me. Thank you for everyone watching today. And we look forward to more discussion.
Thank you, Chandler.
All right. Cheers now.